Habibi for Hodier. This is the African Liberation Media, and I'm here. I'm here with my elder, Baba Makaru. Negroes running wild. We have a lot to talk about. There have been a lot of responses to the decision that was made on the case with Breonna Taylor. A lot of Negroes have given their input, and it really made us look bad, but we're going to get into that probably later on our podcast. But tonight we just want to really address the facts of what happened in the case. We also want to discuss Donald Trump and this new proposal in response to Biden's economic plan and his quote unquote platinum plan for black people. And we also want to look back into the effect of the coronavirus now with 40,000 people, black people that is, who have died from this pandemic. But first, Breonna Taylor's decision. The grand jury decided to charge one officer in this case, not for killing Breonna Taylor, but for shooting into the apartment next door. What a disgrace. And it's not a surprise to many of us who have witnessed these type of decisions, because these people have never really valued black life. So for them, it's not hard to use their legal system that they created to come up with a BS verdict or decision like they did in this situation. But Elder, I want to get your thoughts on this. I know you've studied this case closely, and you also talked about how the decision of this case could potentially affect the presidential election. What were your thoughts when you first heard the decision that was made when it came down?
Abibi Fahodiye, Bado Mapapano, Brother Amos, African Liberation Media family. We discussed the potential outcome. Our thought process was that Daniel Cameron, the former general counsel for Mitch McConnell, Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell, and a person who spoke at the Republican National Convention urging people to re-elect Donald Trump. We were very concerned that he would present a very weak case, because the general term that we hear about grand juries, and we have to understand the process, the prosecutorial process, which in some cases involves a grand jury, in some cases it doesn't involve a grand jury, and then there is a trial jury. The prosecutor is Professor Michelle Alexander points out in the new Jim Crow, is really the most powerful person in this whole process, because he can decide, who to charge with what, and he has the grand jury, just within the palm of his hand. He can mold them into whatever he wants. The general saying in the legal profession is that you can indict a ham sandwich. So that means that any prosecutor could get an indictment if they choose to. And we were concerned that this Negro, Mitch McConnell's mental slave, would present a very weak case, the same as a prosecutor presented in the case with Michael Brown Jr. When he was killed in 2014. We felt that that guy, because of his association with the police department, would present a grand case, and he basically indicted Michael Brown Jr. rather than the killer, Darren Wilson. And this is what we have here, a recapitulation of that. And we see this over and over and over and over again, which really, when people talk about voting, all this focus is on the president, the president. We have a lot of new Jim Crow prosecutors at the local level, and they are really the driving force, as Michelle Alexander points out, that need to be removed. If people want to go vote for something, they can actually have, an impact on, a critical issue that has impacted us, ever since Richard Nixon declared the war on drugs. So I'll give several comments, but I'll give the first reaction. As expected, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron presented a weak case to the grand jury, and no officers were charged with killing Breonna Taylor. We know that there were 3 officers involved in this. There were 5 no-knock warrants signed on that particular night. They were looking for a former companion of Breonna Taylor, and had actually arrested him before the home invasion of Breonna Taylor. I'm calling it a home invasion. They say that they had a legal no-knock warrant, but I'm calling it a home invasion. So, in fact, Cameron said 2 officers were justified in returning fire after being fired upon. So basically, the scenario was that they obtained this warrant. How the no-knock warrant was obtained was not part of the Attorney General's investigation. That's supposedly being investigated by the FBI. And we don't know how independent they will be of Donald Trump's Justice Department. And we don't know how Donald Trump's Justice Department will prosecute this case. We got to remember Donald Trump's Justice Department took up the case of Walter Scott after it had been started by the Obama Justice Department, but they didn't complete it, and they took the case up and got the officer, sentenced to I think 20 years down there when he had been exonerated by a hung jury. Well, not exonerated; it was a hung jury in the initial case. So we don't know how the Donald Trump Justice Department is going to proceed. They also are investigating the killing of Elijah McClain in Denver. But so why Daniel Cameron didn't investigate that as part of his process? Once again, you see, this presidential politics has its fingerprints all over this. Okay. The state found 1 witness who claims to have heard the officers announce their presence. Theoretically, they did not have to announce their presence because they had this warrant, which many people think or now believe that was obtained under very suspicious terms. Previously, the New York Times interviewed 12 of Taylor's neighbors, including a direct neighbor, who said they did not hear the police announce their presence. So the statement of 1 outweighed 12. Here's the interesting thing, Brother Amos, about the statement of the 1 person who was in an apartment upstairs, who was apparently looking out of a window. This guy was interviewed 3 times. Twice he told the police, and they have the transcripts of this. Twice he told the police he didn't hear anything. The 3rd time he was interviewed, he claimed he heard something. But nevertheless, once again, just like the Michael Brown case, where there were people who had no vested interest in the case claiming that they saw Michael Brown with his hands up, that was ignored in favor of the people who said he didn't. So once again, here we go. Officer Brett Hankinson was indicted on 3 counts of a Class D felony for firing shots that could have endangered 3 people in another apartment. He faces a possible 5 years for each count. The grand jury recommended a bond of $15,000, which he posted, and he's now has been released. I think he's supposed to be arraigned maybe tomorrow or one day this week. Here's the interesting thing about that, almost. This guy went around to a sliding glass door and fired 12 shots wildly. The sliding glass door had, I think, blinds and curtains. He could not see where he was firing. He fired 12 shots into the apartment. This Negro Attorney General says those 12 shots didn't endanger Breonna Taylor or Kenneth Walker. They went into an apartment where there was 3 white people, and one of the shots barely missed a 5-year-old child. So the charges were for, and according to Ben Crump, the Taylor family's lawyer, some shots went into some other apartments, but those apartments didn't matter.
Only the apartments where the white people live.
Only the apartments where the white people live. He fired 12 shots, and the charge was called wanton endangerment, and basically they were saying that when he was firing these shots that went through Breonna Taylor's apartment, he wasn't endangering the lives of Breonna Taylor or Kenneth Walker or anybody black, but because it went into an apartment occupied by 3 white people, then he was charged for that. Just a couple of things that have come up regarding. You see the Kentucky Attorney General, and I have not researched to see exactly how he got the case rather than a local prosecutor, but quite frankly, neither the local prosecutor nor the Kentucky Attorney General should have had the authority here. A special prosecutor should have been appointed. But once again, see, we fall into this melanin trap. This, before we knew the word melanin, we used to call it a skin analysis. Just because this Negro has melanin, well, you got a black attorney general investigating the case. Dude, this guy had worked for Mitch McConnell. I mean, what do you expect? Okay. He said the officers were acting in self-defense. That may have held true for Kenneth Walker, who, upon the door being broken down, now remember, we have 12 witnesses who said they heard nothing. You got this one person who changed his story. But Kenneth Walker, the charges were dropped against him. The charges were dropped against Kenneth Walker. So if they were firing in self-defense, why were the charges dropped against Kenneth Walker? But here's the kicker, Brother Amos. Kenneth Walker's attorney, and this guy reminded me, and I'm sure Gullah Jack would agree, he reminded me of a guy like William Kunstler, who defended our brother Jamil El-Amin, or Charles Gary, who defended Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and David Hilliard and other members of the Black Panther Party. Steve Romaine says that per Kentucky law, if you kill a third person in the process of self-defense, you cannot use self-defense to escape culpability for killing the third party. So Breonna Taylor is the third party. The officers killed her, and the Kentucky Attorney General says that they were firing in self-defense when the law does not allow you in Kentucky. According to Steve Romaine, the law does not allow you to claim self-defense if you kill the third party. This is a complete travesty of justice. I mean, it's in my opinion, I mean, we wrote something about this. It's like Roger Taney is sitting on the bench ruling that black people have no rights which white people are bound to respect. Or if the prosecutor somehow has been infected with the disease pus of J. Edgar Hoover, who said justice is incidental to law and order. That's what we have going here. But the beauty of it is our people and others have taken to the streets, not only in Louisville, but all over the country. And Louisville has had now 5 straight days of protests. 127 people were arrested on the first night. I think between 25 and 28 were arrested Saturday night. I don't know how many people were arrested today because they had another march today, and they're demonstrating right now as you and I speak. And you know, we're speaking on Sunday night, September the 27th. So the pressure has to be kept on. The pressure has been kept on because Daniel Cameron has decided that he will not release the transcripts of the grand jury. The Breonna Taylor's family, obviously not under a gag order, has called for a release of the transcripts. Even the Kentucky governor called for a release of the transcripts. And the attorney general says he won't release the transcripts. What does that tell us? It tells us the same thing that the United States government has been telling us since they killed our honorable ancestors, Omar Wally, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King. They will not release the complete unredacted files on Brother Malcolm or Brother Martin. So when the government won't release the files, that tells us they have something to hide. And what we have to hide, what Daniel Cameron is hiding, is his piss poor case that he actually presented in defense of the police. This Negro cared nothing about the life of our sister, Breonna Taylor. And, you know, he should be run out of Kentucky on a rail, you know, in my opinion. But, you know, those are some of the things, Brother Amos, that, you know, I've heard a lot of people, you know, going on different programs talking about these things. But, you know, what we do here at African Liberation Media, because we're African-centered holistic thinkers, we go beyond the fragments and we try to give people the total scope of what has happened. So you know, that's basically a summation. It's probably some other things, you know, I may have just forgotten, but you know, you have any comments or any questions for me, or anything regarding what was said, brother?
Yes, I do. The Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, should not, and this is why these laws that are on the books and the way the system is set up is flawed substantially, because the Attorney General has a relationship with law enforcement that should disqualify them from being able to try any case, whether it's on their behalf or not.
Exactly.
They should not even be. There should be a third party that handles these type of cases. But because the Attorney General, who works with police officers on a daily basis and has close relationships with most of law enforcement, they're always going to paint the picture and make the picture look nice for law enforcement to get off when these type of charges come down, these situations happen. That's number one. So systematically, this Attorney General is set up to do exactly what he did. That's the first thing. The second thing is, this Attorney General is in a situation that Dr. Chancellor Williams called one of the greatest reasons why black people fail. In his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, he said one of the greatest problems in history, in African history, was the problem of amalgamation. Race mixing.
Absolutely.
This guy, Daniel Cameron, has a white wife, and anybody who has a relationship with a white person, I feel as though they are automatically going to be flawed when it comes to defending black people. They automatically have told us who they really have love for. You choose to marry a white person and start a family with a white person. So with that being the situation, that's the second strike against this guy, because he wouldn't value Breonna Taylor's life, because he wouldn't even value a black woman enough to marry a black woman. The third thing is his relationship with, as you stated, Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party. Uh, we know that most Republicans and most white people are pro-police, and it's hard for them to justify sending police officers to the jail because the police officers represent their protection. The police officers have always been the people that they can call when they feel afraid of black people, or when they feel afraid. Period. They would not be able to live peacefully if it wasn't for law enforcement. So they have a higher respect for law enforcement, and they already don't value black life anyway. So it's not hard for them to sleep at night where they have to do something like Daniel Cameron had to do.
You know, I remember this speech by Bobby Wright, and he was talking about this Chicago sociologist who wrote a book called The Declining Significance of Race. And Dr. Wright said, yeah, the significance of race declines from him every night when he climbs in bed with his white woman.
That's right.
So, you know, Bobby Wright just had a way of presenting information and then, you know, giving us a little humor in the process. But
That's right.
I'm really proud of the people in Louisville for continuing to protest. One of the state legislators, black sister legislator, was arrested last night and charged with felony riot. And so, you know, what you see coming down, man, is the tentacles of fascism, crypto-fascism, or fascism is just extending further and further. But there was something very interesting almost that took place during the second night of the demonstrations. And I'm going to read what was written. Lorenzo, Larynzo, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Johnson, 26, is accused of shooting two Louisville police officers. He's been charged with 2 counts of assault on an officer and 14 counts of wanton endangerment of a police officer. This guy allegedly shot 2 police officers and is not charged with attempted murder. See, when I first heard this story, both me and my daughter, both our antennas kind of went up. Something about this just not feel right, because remember, Kenneth Walker was charged with attempted murder. This guy allegedly shoots 2 police officers and is not charged. He's charged with the same thing that they charged Hankinson with, the guy that fired the shots through Breonna Taylor's apartment. Interesting, very interesting. But something about it just doesn't feel right. I mean, the other thing is this. You think about Tamir Rice, you know, Michael, you know, Brown Jr., John Crawford, Jonathan Farrell. We can go on and on, naming names. Black people who were killed. This guy allegedly shot 2 police officers. He is arrested with a gun. He is not shot, not killed. Now, we know what happened to our brothers in Dallas and Baton Rouge. They didn't waste any time killing them. Okay. And somebody said, well, he didn't kill the officers. Well, they didn't know that. The shots were strategically placed or accidentally placed below the vest. One officer was shot in the abdomen. The other one was shot in the leg. Don't know if it's the upper leg or what. Everybody says shoot somebody in the leg. Look, the largest artery in your body runs through your leg, the femoral artery. You know, that's how the former NFL player Sean Taylor was killed, right? He was shot in his femoral artery, and you can bleed to death in less than 10 minutes. LMPD says Johnson intentionally used a handgun to fire multiple bullets at officers. They said the suspect's actions showed extreme indifference to the value of human life and put officers at the scene in danger of death or serious injury. The names of the officers were not released. Witnesses identified Johnson as firing the gun. Who were these witnesses? And then running from the scene, the citation states. And he was in possession of a handgun when he was detained. A black man with a gun shot 2 police officers and he lives? I mean, this sounds like Dylan Roof. Uh, Footage reviewed by LMPD, okay, according to the citation, and a National Integrated Ballistics Information Network examiner, they've done the ballistics already? Said they were looking into an association between the firearm and the shell cases, and they are convinced that that was the gun that was used. Check this, Almost. Johnson's record shows no previous arrest for violent crimes or felony convictions. His address on the arrest citation listed no home, but CAL, meaning city at large. Okay, under Kentucky law, a person who commits a crime when he or she wantonly endangers and wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger or death or serious physical injury to another person, and does so under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of life. Okay, so that's the charge. That's how they got the charge. And is it a coincidence that they gave him the same charge that they gave the officer who fired through Breonna Taylor's apartment? Kentucky law stipulates what is violent. For instance, by Kentucky statute, murder is considered a violent offense, but in some variations of attempted murder are not. Attempted murder, Class B felony, punishable by 10 to 20 years, is considered violent if it results in a serious physical injury. This particular charge, now they gave him 14 charges, but the charge of a wanton endangerment only carries 5 years. There's something about this that just doesn't sound right, man. I just, when I heard this, I'm saying, okay, are they trying to use this to, give, Trump some, political, propaganda to use? Black man shoots 2 police officers. The guy has no convictions, doesn't say anything about whether he ever been in the U.S. military, and he doesn't even have an address. This one, we got to keep our eye on this one, because this doesn't sound right, man. This doesn't sound right at all.
Speaking of Donald Trump, so this week, many people saw this proposed platinum plan that he put out, and in this plan, he is discussing a lot of different things. We of course know that, around election times, politicians promise many things. Most of the things that they promise, they never deliver on when they become president, or if they're elected.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, Trump is talking about $500 billion to be spent in black communities in various ways, some in government contracts, housing, other things in the black communities that will be set to quote unquote improve the quality of life for black people.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about making Juneteenth a federal holiday, which really means nothing. It's really just more symbolism. That it's one of the things that plagues us. It's a constant addiction to symbolism that really means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the interesting things that he's talked about, which is still more symbolism, but declaring the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations. Now it's quite odd that for a country that has had the KKK in existence for well over 100 years now, why would it take this long to come to this particular president, who everybody considers to be a bigot and a racist and all these other things, why would it take it to come to Donald Trump to say that he's going to declare the KKK a terrorist group?
Yeah, that is, like you say, it's symbolic in a sense, but it's also historic because before the rise of all of these, the Boogaloo Boys, the Three Percenters, all of these other organizations, even the neo-Nazis, the skinheads that we see out there today, and all of these militias, the Ku Klux Klan was the organization that reigned terror, on the black community, people of African descent, that led to the overthrow of Reconstruction. Okay, this is a fact. I mean, in virtually every incident, and we had a number of massacres. Memphis, Tennessee in 1866, Colfax, Louisiana, 1876. What was it? Bamberg, South Carolina. I can't remember. Can't remember this little city down in South Carolina. In fact, the city doesn't even exist anymore now. Wilmington, North Carolina. I mean, in every one of these places, the Ku Klux Klan, Ocoee, Florida, 1920. So on November the 8th, it would be the 100th year remembrance of the massacre of between 55 and 60 Africans in Ocoee, Florida, on Election Day in 1920. The Ku Klux Klan was the organization carrying these atrocities out against people of African descent. And people of African descent have voted into office a number of presidents. Their votes certainly decided the 1960 election between Richard Nixon and John Kennedy. And so you had these presidents that black people like to, say, well, this is an example of, some kind of civility or justice or whatever. Lyndon Johnson, Jimmy Carter, Willie Clinton, Barack Obama. None of them declared the Klan to be a terrorist organization. In many ways, Donald Trump is probably the only president who would do something like that, because Donald Trump has I think, a very unique characteristic. He is able to speak out of both sides of his mouth with extremes, and it has no impact on the people who support him. I mean, in terms of, you would say, well, you would think that his right-wing constituency would be up in arms. No, they're not up in arms about Trump saying he's going to declare the Klan to be a terrorist organization. No, he's probably the only person that's able to do this. But it's symbolic, but it's also historic, and it's certainly something that his supporters, his Tim Scott and all of his other black supporters, Herschel Walker and whoever, can stand up and say, look, man, look, this guy did something that Barack Obama didn't do. It wouldn't surprise me if Trump pardoned Marcus Garvey. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But what he was doing here, he was one-upping Joe Biden. Joe Biden was in Charlotte last week, met with some Black Economic Council, and he discussed his plan for African Americans, which includes investing $70 billion in HBCUs and other quote-unquote minority-serving institutions, and leveraging $150 billion in new capital and opportunities for Black-owned small businesses and other small businesses that have been structurally excluded for generations. So Biden comes out with $150 billion. Now, what we have to understand is this: all of this is not federal money. Okay, even Trump's 500 billion, I think he only committed about $40 billion in federal money. Certainly that's no, uh, dropping, it's not, that's a significant amount of money. Trump's plan would also create, he says, 3 million new jobs for the black community. He would create 500,000 new black-owned businesses. And as you mentioned, the capital investment of almost 500 billion. Now, 40 million of that would come from the Fed. So what he was doing was, he was saying, okay, Biden came out with 150, I'm gonna promise 500. Okay, so what we know for a fact is this: American politics is the science of deception. You can't believe anything in American politics until you actually see it happen. And generally, it doesn't happen without some type of pressure. It doesn't happen based on policies. Okay. But like you said, the Juneteenth holiday, I mean, we don't need white people to declare, or the federal government to say, oh, y'all can have this holiday. No, we have to have, some sense of coup de chocolat, self-determination, right? To do things for ourselves. But I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting that this would be the president who does that. And they have a debate coming up on Tuesday night, which should be interesting. He was roll calling all kinds of guys. He met with his black supporters in Atlanta when he made this announcement, and he was calling out these guys from what is the mixed martial arts thing? What is that?
MMA.
Yeah, he was calling out. There were guys there from that, and I mean, it was he had a roll call of people that he was naming, along with his regular crowd. Tim Scott and Ben Carson, etc. I know we want to keep the show tonight and focus, but there's just one other thing I do want to mention, and because we're still going to do our regular podcast. Former Black Panther, Black Liberation Army member, Brother Jalil Montequim is to be paroled. He has been in custody for more than 49 years, having been arrested and later convicted for the 1971 murders of 2 police officers in Harlem. Under terms of his parole, he must be released from a maximum security Sullivan Correctional Facility in upstate New York by October the 20th. So Herman Bell, who was his comrade in this particular incident, was released last year, and they've been trying to put him back in jail. I'm sure they're going to be up in arms about this. All of the supporters, hell, they might even call Daniel Cameron to come up to New York and say something about it, but who knows? But hopefully on October 20th, Brother Jalil will be released. And we have a lot of others. Imam Jamil El-Amin, H. Rap Brown, Matula Shakur, Chip Fitzgerald, Ed Poindexter, Kamal Siddiqui, Veranzo Bowers, the white revolutionary David Gilbert. I mean, there are a lot of others who should also be released. Sundiata Acoli, who was with Assata Shakur when they were attacked. All of these political prisoners should be released. We'll see what happens. That's all I got, Brother Amos.
Shay, it's good to hear that news. One thing I will say about this Donald Trump situation that black people have to be aware of is that Donald Trump is doing things for the black person that he wants to create.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to create and sustain the black American patriot.
Okay.
These are the Candace Owens of the world. These are,
Lord.
The Jesse Lee Petersons.
Mm.
These are the type of black people that Donald Trump would like to see exist in America. He has no problem with making Juneteenth a federal holiday because it fits within the up from slavery American history.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely don't have a problem with Juneteenth, so I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that these people still do not want black people to have any African culture prior to the Ma'afa.
Mm-hmm.
And they would not be willing to create uh, any type of advantage for African people to reconnect with Africa and the African continent because they know that would be detrimental to their survival.
Right.
So we have to understand that when we see these opportunities come out, and that's not for me to say don't take advantage of a particular opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
but we just can't get tricked and sucked into this this belief in the American system, the American dream, and American patriotism, because it is those things that destroy our family lines and that has destroyed the African continent. So we can't get on the side of ADOS. We can't get on the side of the foundational Black Americans, all these other groups that promote the idea of black people in America only and black people in America first before anything African
Mm-hmm.
is something that we have to be willing to separate ourselves from if we're going to try to really achieve African liberation.
You know, that's a good point, because you know, whenever the power structure, the white power structure, makes a concession, you know, they're playing chess, so they're thinking three moves ahead. So you know, they did everything they could, for many years, you know, to stop the Dr. King holiday from becoming a reality. Okay, so finally Ronald Reagan caved in. What do? They say, okay, we're gonna give y'all the holiday. Then we're going to define the Dr. King that you all should celebrate. You know, this is a guy that, you know, he had a dream. That's all he was. He was a dreamer. And so that and that became like when they teach Dr. King in a lot of schools, that's what you get. Dr. King had a dream. It's deeply rooted in the American dream. You know, little white boys and little black girls and all this kind. All right. They said, we'll give it to you, but we're going to define it. And there's no doubt in my mind that if, in fact, of course, you know, this has to be approved, if in fact it became a reality, then they would try to define it along the exact lines that you have described. And so then we'd have to be in another battle once again to you know, control the narrative, right? You know, which, you know, we've been doing, you know, Juneteenth in Charlotte here for over 20 years. And, you know, I am the Juneteenth of the Carolinas historian. And I've always made sure during my lectures, uh, you know, during Juneteenth, or, you know, when I've asked to, you know, give some kind of media announcement or whatever, I've always made sure that our people understood the complete Ma'afa, not just what started in 1619. Generally, you know, we go back to the Battle of Surta, 1415, Prince Henry the Navigator, 1441, 1444, the disaster of 1492, uh, with the genocide there, Columbus, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we would be. But your point is extremely valid, Brother Amos, particularly with these groups out here who want to separate us from the rest of the African world. But go ahead, brother. You got the final word.
Ashe, well, thank you for watching this video. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment on this video, and be in tune for more videos that will be coming soon. And also stay tuned in to our weekly podcast that we'll be doing. We'll be releasing another episode tomorrow night. Well, no, Tuesday night. Be before Hodier.
Be before Hodier.